Damn, Layden, he's firing again at Gamepass and Microsoft. It's gonna get interesting, y'all. It's a lot to talk about in here. And yeah, are we ready? This is a long one, so we're gonna have to listen to everything. And I got to the meat of the writing because there's a lot of other interesting stuff that is actually could be talked about in a separate video entirely that are non-related to the big focus here about Layden throwing more punches at Game Pass. And we're going to talk about what he's right about and then how other aspects could be seen positive outside of that. So let's get ready to do this. All right, Stealth posted this, but we got the article where it comes from, and then we got other things going on as well. But let's read this little quick highlight. Former PlayStation executive Shawn Layden is not a fan of subscription models like Game Pass. Under the subscription model, the developer essentially becomes a wage slave, he argues. Now that's an interesting statement because we're going to get to other things said about that later on. They're not creating value, putting it in the marketplace, hoping it explodes, and profit sharing, and overages, and all that nice stuff. He means past revenue, show me the profit after everybody takes everything. It's not worth it to him. And remember what I told you guys about when Lauren Studios came out for Baldur's Gate and said it, and a couple other people where it's like they're top tier. Why somebody like Nintendo would say the same thing? Well, look how much they sell, you know what I mean? And then I said that also it's too early. It wasn't too early for Netflix, apparently it worked, but it was too early for that in gaming. Definitely if it's only Microsoft representing it, who has the lowest base. Now, if you had the whole industry trying it, then that means that physical media must have really died along with digital sales not doing as well. And they have to move to that, which would make sense for certain things. Like, you know, nobody was buying music CDs anymore. So Spotify is perfect along with other things. Of course, they're going to lose money though. But that's what happens, you see? So that's the way they're looking at it. Now, there could be somebody that has never made a game before, and Microsoft gave them millions of dollars and helped them fund it, and they sold it, and it got out there, whereas they would have tried by themselves, it wouldn't have worked. It can work well in those situations, but it's not for everything. Definitely for people who only buy a few games. Even Phil Spencer said the same thing. So Layden, I don't think is necessarily trying to be a villain. He's just speaking from the point of view of PlayStation. Like, I won. I beat Microsoft, you know what I mean? I led PlayStation. I know what it's like to win, and to me, from a winner's mentality, from a PlayStation perspective, you gotta think of it that way. No, I don't like it. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Coming from Shawn Layden, when you think about the PlayStation mentality, dude, it doesn't make sense. Because Sony said they weren't doing that, like putting their games, their first-party games day and date. That's what they're saying. And then not only that, putting it day and date on another platform. Layden and them are not going to play that game like that. So yeah, it's interesting seeing the new guys though, right? They're not creating value, putting it in a marketplace. I don't think it's really inspiring for game developers. What does he mean by this? And we're gonna get to the article. Okay, let's say that you had a team and a budget, right? But you probably could have gotten more later on, and you knew you had this budget and you had to work with it. And you needed it to be successful so you can continue making games and survive in that industry. So you gave it your all because of that. You're set up in that type of way to succeed and to really put yourself to the limit. To certain people, they think that Game Pass will cripple that, because you just instantly receive the paycheck, but you didn't like, you don't have to worry about anything. Instead of just like working together as a team and really knowing what it's like to really be able to do that, not just handed that. And then it goes on a subscription service, and then they get used to that, and the developer to him is not trying to reach their full potential and continue growing because Game Pass is not going to help them do that. That's what he's trying to say. I'm translating it for you. I know what he's saying. Now, the interesting thing is where does this start and where does this get to? Well, you guys want to know? Let's turn that down a little bit. Here we go. A wild west of pricing. It gets interesting. $80 games are only part of the story. Across the high, mid, and low range pricing has become far more dynamic. I think what we're seeing is more diversity of launch pricing and promotional strategy post-launch than we've ever seen before. This is by Piscatella and Layden. There's some interviews upcoming. Says Piscatella. We're seeing games being released at all ends of the spectrum when it comes to pricing, and folks are going to charge for their game what they think they can most get away with. Matt says something very interesting right here, but it gets more interesting later. Some games you look and go, what are you thinking? Yeah, and what was talked about before this? Outer Worlds 2. But we're not going to get too far off. I just wanted to show you guys how this is kind of going. What were you thinking? Because internally, they've convinced themselves that they have the secret sauce, and this is going to be the biggest game in the world. That's what we were talking about when I said that. It doesn't make any sense. Mario Kart made sense, but even though we don't agree with it. And they got away with it. And we know that. The game's probably on its way to 8+ million right now. Or because the financial plan demands that they have a big revenue day one, even though everyone on the team might know that's a little bit of a pipe dream. Yeah, you would have destroyed everything when you could have just not made that decision because they could do. Oh yeah, of course they can do it. That makes sense. But there's things like that in life, like the #1 player in the world are doing things nobody else is doing. Doesn't mean the whole world needs to try. It's like, no, man. Stick within your means and keep trying to grow, right? Don't get too far off the track and throw everything off the rail. Just trying to be greedy. It's not worth it. Doesn't make sense to me to work so hard for all those years and then make a simple price change and ruin it all instantly. I tell you, he reckons this pattern of adverse pricing will continue. I think we're going to see a lot of experimentation, he says. Everyone kind of dabbles and tries to figure it out, and then it gets optimized into oblivion, like we see on Steam summer sales now, where it used to be the Wild West of discounting and pricing all over the board, and now you pretty much know that you're going to get every summer when that sale comes around. Yeah, now it's everywhere available. So, right here, he's basically talking about video game analysis. Now we're going to get to what Layden's talking about, right? Here it is right here. Here's where Layden comes in. I'm not a big supporter of the Netflix of gaming. And if you guys want to finish this, you can come right up here. But basically, he's just talking about like, there's things of going around with the variable pricing. Like he feels like, you know, it's going to be a $50 game. This feels like a $70 game, which isn't the best way to do it, but that's the way it's still done a lot of times. To confuse things even further, we now have a subscription model that completely upended traditional ideas of pricing and contribute to the idea among the general public that games should cost hardly anything at all. He's saying that the mindset that it changes you to think like that, but really it's not in tune with reality. I know what he means. No one wants to pay money to come into the studio and watch people code. I'm not a big supporter of the Netflix of gaming idea, says Layden. I think it's a danger. I just had to finish that for you guys. I mean, look what happened to music. In the popular mind, music costs nothing. Music should be free. Spotify, what is that? It costs $15 a month or something. But virtually no one buys music anymore. The one silver lining, he says, is that music artists have an adjacent market in the form of touring, allowing them to rely more heavily on ticket sales and merchandise as a key revenue stream. The problem with gaming is that all we have is launch. That's it. No one wants to pay money to come into the studio and watch people code. I know what he means by that. All of this is why he thinks that putting games subscription services on day one is bad for the business. Bobby Kotick said the same thing. That's why nobody's doing it but Microsoft, because they can do it and they have the money. And the David's putting it to where he's going multi-platform to try to make up for that. But does that benefit the developer who can get cannibalized over time and laid off? Hey man, I understand. Yeah, we've talked about that before. You guys know I've dived into that. Now I'm going to talk about where Gamepass could be positive, like I was telling people, is where you got your game expanded. People went and bought your DLC, you got the paycheck, and then they publish it like Ninja Gaiden and they put it on multiple platforms, and it does work out. So there's situations where it can work, and then there's situations where I understand what Layden is saying on the grand scheme. Of course, that's not going to work, because as I told people before, when Netflix came out with Hulu and Crunchyroll and all that, ain't nobody buying no Blu-rays anymore. Nobody buying no DVDs. They all tanked, just went away, because that's how they felt. 83% of PlayStation users are digital. What is physical on Xbox anymore? When most of the base is on Game Pass. See, there's no physical there. They're mostly not. So if you really think about that, it trains people a certain way. That even if we think outside the digital realm, right? Just think of subscription only. It trains people a certain way to get comfortable of having so much high quality content without paying much. And then when you put that in front of them, you've already conditioned them not to do that. It's like people are conditioned with digital and they never want to get up and have to go out and get in the car, waste gas. So we just put them all together, you know what I mean? And go in, and now with the key card stuff there and then the code in the box, before key cards even existed, it was already bad. and they were doing that shit. So that it's like, what's the point then? And then it's gonna take up space in my house when I could just not move and get it right here and not have it take up space. Yeah, it's more space efficient to me. That's why I like digital. And I can understand people's mindset of well, you could just shut down the shop and resell it to me, unless you're gonna carry over my digital library and not charge me. You know what I mean? So yeah, that type of stuff can get a little bit complicated. But yeah, my thing is with Game Pass, it can be positive in certain aspects. But if you think about it, like for being the whole of the face of the industry, like Netflix is the whole in the face of the industry, that's not going to work right now. That's not the way the gaming industry works for 97% of the world. You know what I mean? Only just in the Xbox world. Whereas like Netflix is the whole of the entire industry now. And now you see some other people taking up vacuums like HBO, Hulu, Crunchyroll. Then you got stuff like Tubi coming in and, stuff like that. And everybody's all on that. And then even free websites. Nobody's going to buy any Blu-rays and that. It does. It kills that market. And people kind of choose in the movie world to move on from that as a whole, like the majority, when you got a couple 100 million people doing that, right? Rather than like, only on the Xbox, probably like, what they said they sold 30 million, 31. But imagine how many are really actually on there out of that. Probably like 20, 19, you know what I mean? So that's very low compared to the couple 100 millions on the other platforms that are just playing a different game. So the majority of them will say that. That's why I want people in the Xbox only world to understand. That's why you're going to see this. It's not that they're coming necessarily to like tear it down, but they're saying from their point of view in a position that they're in, same thing with Bobby Kotick and Activision. It doesn't make any sense when you're already a billion-dollar industry. So you're not struggling to need to do that. Microsoft just has a lot of money. So that's pretty much it right there. And all of this is why he thinks putting games on the service is bad for the business. No lesser light than Strand Zellick himself. The GTA is never going on a subscription service. Day one. Layden points out, he acknowledges. See, Sony's doing the same thing. They'll put it on there, but it's never going to be day one. They align with the Rockstar mentality, the Baldur's Gate mentality, the PC mentality, the Nintendo mentality, and these sorts of senses. Nintendo will never put anything on any subscription when it comes to those AAA games. So you kind of get the idea, like the majority are just not with it. Only Microsoft. He acknowledges that the situation might be different for indie developers. That's what I was talking about. Remember when I said about my story earlier? That you could help them. I could see that being beneficial for them. Who crave discovery. Remember when I said put your game out above all else? I'm not going to lie to y'all, make up anything. But for AAA games, he questions the idea of launching day one on subscription services like Xbox Game Pass. Dude, you ain't telling me to go make a game that costs $250 million and you're saying I'll pay you $50 million to put it on Game Pass. Where am I going to get the other $200 million at? I gotta go to other platforms. Give me my $3 million for my 60, you know what I mean? Off of PC and that. So then 60 times 3, I made 180 million. They gave me 50 million. You see what I mean? Now I made 230 million, and then over time they're buying microtransactions or whatever. Okay, now I'm making 300 something million, but it cost me this much. I'm still only 80 million profit. If I want to make the next game that costs that much, you see what I'm saying? So yeah. That's what I mean. That's what I've always thought about anything. And I was like, see, I don't think Sony can do that, but Microsoft, they have a lot of money, so that's why they can do it. That's just being aware, you know what I mean? It's just common sense. So he questions the idea of launching day one on subscription services like Game Pass. Now that the idea is out there, however, it's difficult to go back. You can't unring that bell. The only way is if it got so bad, they'll just shut it down and exit out. And that's what I worry about for certain people. GTA 6 won't be day one on Game Pass, obviously. But beyond the financial wisdom of making new games available for free at launch, Layden worries about change and ethos behind it. There's a lot of debates going on. Is Game Pass profitable? Is Game Pass not profitable? What does that mean? That's not really the right question to ask anyway. You can do all this kind of financial jiggery-pokery for any sort of corporate service to make it look profitable if you wanted to. That's what I try to tell people. It's not. They're just reporting revenue and including the microtransactions that are included in regular games, but they're stacking that in there. But if you just look at only what Game Pass did and what it cost, no profit at all. But if you add in all that, like Layden is saying, and Sony will do some of that too, you can make it look like that. But the reality is, it's not. It's impossible. No way. I'm just being real with y'all, you know what I mean? You know, like I said, if you see my content, don't come to me with none of that shit because I'm just being real. Porter Rock handles shit real. I want to see the Xbox community do it. Don't be soft. Don't be no JTEX. You take enough cost out and say that's off the balance sheet. And oh, look, it's profitable now. Damn! Guys, I gotta hand it to him. He called it out. And I've been telling y'all that. Respect, Shawn Layden, because you're also saying the same thing for Sony. It's not profitable. There it is. I gotta accept the truth. He just told me. I've never read this. Swear to God, I just got to this. I'm reading this along with you guys. I knew it. It's like I said, they took that out. Like I said, it's not reasonable. The real issue for me on things like Game Pass is it healthy for the developer too? Under the subscription model, the developer essentially becomes a wage slave, he argues. Shawn Layden, I respect you for telling the truth. They're not creating value, putting it in the marketplace, hoping it explodes, and profit sharing and overages and all that nice stuff is just you pay me X dollars an hour. I built you a game, here, go put it on your servers. I don't think it's really inspiring for game developers. Part 2 to follow. Guys, I want to tell you something, how long this interview is. Look at this. We just covered this little part right here. But look how long this is. That's why I didn't do that, because we would be on here like an hour video. And it's from the game industry business, of course. And this is by Lewis Packwood. I looked him up earlier. He does have a page. This is him right here. He's from England. So you know he's a part of the group with Dring and them. Yeah, he does stuff on video games. Microsoft's Darkest Day in games. That's the last one. Funny. But yeah, that's him if y'all wanted to check him out. Just give y'all the intel on everything here. So interesting take by Layden. Now I understand why he's saying what he's saying from that perspective. But I still love Game Pass and I'm still going to use it because it benefits us. But does it benefit the developer in the industry? Not really, no. Because I'm just keeping it real. And I've been saying that, you know what I mean? Because I knew the truth. I'm like, all right, I might as well tell you. No, it doesn't. It's impossible. No way. If you add in, like I said, development costs. I just gave you the example. If you told me Spider-Man cost me $300 million and I got to sell 10 million copies to be where I'm like, okay, I made finally 150 million profit. If I put that on a service, how the hell is that even possible? I'm going to lose so much money. And if I'm not adding that in and I'm showing you I made 5 billion, it's like, see, bro, I can't trust you then because you just lied to me. See, they're lying. That's why I say that, like, don't believe that crap, man. Like, ask, can you show me the profit? Why didn't you show me the profit? Because you're giving me a half a truth. If you gave me a half a truth, you're lying to me because you don't want me to see the full picture. You know me, I gotta call that shit out. You ain't fooling me. Let me know what y'all think. Peace out.